as a biologist, what we see is that aging is actually something that can be negotiated with. So in our species, we're somewhat isolated in the mechanisms by which we age, but there are many other species out there that we study as scientists that have uncoupled biological aging from chronological aging. So I often talk about species like the Greenland shark, which can live for over 400 or 500 years in the ocean, and they don't even become reproductively mature until they're 150.
Wow.
Well, that's why we're interested in those species. But they gestate their young for 18 years.
Mm.
So if you have that sort of time scale in your lifespan, you're obviously doing something very different from a biological perspective than perhaps a mouse or a dog or even a human. We look at these giant turtles and tortoises, sorry, that live, for 300 years. They're obviously doing something very different as well. They're not just living in the ocean; these are terrestrial. They live on land. But by far, one of the most interesting species is a species of jellyfish called Teratopsis dornii, and it's also known as the immortal jellyfish. And what that does is that after it's born, it matures to sexual maturity where it's able to reproduce. And then it says, you know what? I've had enough of being adult. I like being a kid. And so it de-differentiates back to a baby, back to a polyp. And it just keeps doing that over and over again. So it will be a polyp, a baby for a while, and then it will start maturing again and become an adolescent and then an adult and a reproductive adult, and then it will de-differentiate. And so some experts believe that we have jellyfish in our oceans today that were born over 5,000 years ago. And the only reason they die is because of disease or predation. They get eaten, but they don't actually age. So when I learned things like this, I'll give you one other quick example. Lobsters,
Lobsters. Yeah, I read that.
species of yeah, and there's a species of carp called the buffalo carp. They just keep growing. They don't show any biological signs of aging. In fact, if you took a buffalo carp at 100 years old, you wouldn't know that it was any different than a 1 year old, other than the fact that it was much larger, but it reproduces exactly the same. It has the same biology. There's no degeneration. And so, what I was learning from these species is that you could uncouple biological aging and chronological aging, and there are mechanisms that exist in nature that don't break any fundamental laws because we see it existing, where you can keep a system, a biological system, a body intact for many hundreds of years when other species don't.